Welcome to Tarot's Landing, a place where we explore tarot old and new, the classic currents and the strange little tides that show up when a deck has something to say. Before we begin, a gentle reminder. Not every reading is for everyone. If this one speaks to you, if it feels like someone just set a hand on your shoulder and said, "Yes, this is the moment," then you're in the right place. And if, as we go, it starts to drift away from you, no worries at all. Let it pass, like weather. We'll be right here, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Now, today's energy feels like a threshold, not a dramatic cliff, more like that quiet point where an old strategy stops working and something truer asks to take over. I'm picking up on movement, opportunity, and a kind of shining temptation alongside a sober, grounding note that says, "Be honest about the cost. Be clean about your choices." There's warmth here, but it's not careless warmth. It's the kind that can change your life if you handle it with integrity. Take a breath. Let's see what wants to be revealed. All right, our first card is Blind Gate. And immediately, this feels like the heart of the reading. You are at a threshold. Not the kind where everything is obvious and neatly signposted, but the kind where an old way of coping, deciding, or controlling has simply reached its limit. Something in your life is no longer asking, "Can you manage this?" It's asking, "Can you be honest about what this really is?" Blind Gate shows up when the mind wants guarantees, but the soul is asking for truth. So for many of you, this card says, stop trying to force clarity before you move. You may not get the full map first, you may only get the next true step. There's also a strong message here about what cannot come with you. A role, a defense, a story about who you've had to be. Something is too heavy for the passage ahead. And I don't say that as punishment. I say it because this card is merciful in a severe kind of way. It doesn't block you to be cruel. It blocks what is false so the real thing can pass. For some of you, this is a vow moment, not a grand performance, just a quiet inward decision. I will not abandon myself here. I will not keep pretending. I will choose what is true, even if I cannot yet see where it leads. So this first card tells me the reading begins at the point of surrender, but not helpless surrender, sacred, deliberate surrender, the kind that changes your life. Alright, our second card is abundance, and I have to say this is beautiful beside Blind Gate because it tells me that what waits on the other side of this threshold is not emptiness, it's flow, it's nourishment, it's support, but it comes with a very specific lesson. You do not reach this by gripping tighter. Abundance here is not just money, though for some of you it absolutely can touch finances, work, opportunity, or material stability. But more deeply, this is about learning that blessing moves like a current. It wants to circulate. So if the first card asked, "What must you set down?" the second card asks, "Where are you being invited to trust the flow instead of controlling the outcome?" For some of you, the old strategy has been scarcity thinking. Holding back, guarding your energy, your love, your creativity, your resources, because you're afraid that if you let it move, it won't come back. But this card says the opposite may be true. What is meant for you grows when it is used well, shared cleanly, and allowed to breathe. In relationships, this can mean mutual care, warmth, generosity without scorekeeping. In work, it can mean collaboration, fair exchange, shared credit, ethical prosperity. Spiritually, it says the river returns when you stop trying to dam it with fear. So this card is reassurance. The threshold is real, but so is the provision beyond it. Alright, our third card is Iron Veil, And wow, this sharpens the whole reading, because now we move from threshold and flow into truth with consequences. Blind Gate said you're at a crossing. Abundance said there is real provision on the other side. But Iron Veil says before that flow can fully open, something has to be faced plainly, not dramatically, plainly. This card is about the unspoken contract in your life, the thing that has already been shaping your choices, a fear, a habit, a silence, an obligation, a pattern you may have been living inside without fully naming it. An iron veil appears when you can no longer pretend you don't know. For some of you, this is relational. Something unsaid is holding the dynamic together. For others, this is work, money, or calling, recognizing what you've been tolerating, enabling, or binding yourself to. And for some, it's deeply internal. The rule you learned long ago that says who you're allowed to be, what you're allowed to want, what it would cost to live more honestly. The message here is not expose everything, it's be responsible with the truth. Clarity is needed, but not as a weapon, not for punishment, not for performance, for alignment. So this third card says, name the real thing, name the agreement, name the cost, because once you do, the path ahead becomes colder, yes, but also cleaner. And that kind of honesty is what makes real change possible. So just to gather the thread before we move on, this reading is telling a very clear story. Blind Gate says you're at a real threshold and the old way of navigating this cannot take you any further. Abundance reassures us that what's ahead is not loss for the sake of loss, but a fuller, cleaner flow, if you're willing to stop gripping from fear. And Iron Veil says the way through is honesty, naming the unspoken contract, the hidden cost, the truth that has already been shaping your choices. So where we're going next is this. How do you move through this with integrity? And what begins to open once you do? Alright, our fourth card is the Knight of Wands, and here's where the reading starts to move. Because after Blind Gate, Abundance, and Iron Veil, we now get momentum. Real momentum. This is the card of ignition, courage, appetite, action. So once the truth is named, once the false weight is set down, something in you is no longer willing to sit still. For a lot of you, this is going to feel like a sudden surge. The message sent, the application submitted, the trip taken, the conversation begun, the creative risk finally acted on. This is not passive energy. This is go energy. But I do want to say, because the Knight of Wands can burn hot, this is not asking you to act recklessly. It's asking you to act boldly. There's a difference. Don't move just to escape discomfort. Move because you've touched something true and now your life has to respond. So if Iron Veil said, name the real thing, the Knight of Wands says, now do something about it. There's charisma here, confidence here, and honestly a little bit of holy impatience. The waiting period is ending. You are not being asked to have the whole journey figured out. You're being asked to take the first living step. This card says the door opens and you move. Alright, our fifth card is Golden Offer, and this is such an important card to close on because it shows us the test that appears once the door starts to open. After Blind Gate, Abundance, Iron Veil, and the Knight of Wands, you may be moving into momentum very quickly. And Golden Offer says, as you do, be careful of the shortcut that looks exactly like the answer. The dazzling yes, the too perfect opportunity, the thing that promises relief, success, love, security, or recognition without requiring your full becoming. This card does not say refuse every opportunity. Not at all. It says look at the cost beneath the shine. For some of you, this is a literal offer. Work, money, a deal, an invitation, a relationship. For others, it's a pattern. The temptation to grab the outcome and skip the inner work, to get the prize now, but quietly trade away freedom, integrity, or future possibility. And that's the message here. Don't confuse blessing with bait. If it's truly for you, it will survive your discernment. It will survive your questions. It will survive a slower, cleaner yes. So this final card says, you are absolutely moving towards something powerful, but choose in a way that preserves who you are becoming, not just what you can get. It was a pleasure doing this reading for you. Please subscribe for more readings.